thingy. We're going to make sure to start when it's time, and hopefully people will still be coming in, because this is going to be a good session, people. This is going to be fun times. Indeed. This is the place to be. I hope you had a good lunch. Good food, right? And are you enjoying the conference so far? Yeah? The speaker lineup, I'm so happy they let me be part of it, because the lineup is excellent. I have to say. Not at all intimidating, right? Is it that time? Shall we start? All right. I'm getting thumbs up from the people. Let's see. All right. Hello and welcome to this session about application-centric observability. We will soon see exactly what that means. I am going to talk about preview stuff today, and it's been kind of unstable. I just had a demo come together like an hour ago. I was like, screenshot, screenshot. So there are screenshot fallbacks in case the real things do not work. But so we're in good shape. This session is about three things. It is about a new way to let Azure know what your resources are in terms of what resources make up my application. This is something coming out from Azure governance, like the base plate of Azure, right? And then once we have these so-called service groups that I will talk about, you can then, as other teams inside of Microsoft, start taking bets on that and building new experiences like health modeling, right? So we're going to talk about those two things, but I do want to start with a little bit of a in the rear view thing, and we'll get some light stretching going in the audience, and then see if you can figure out when certain services were created in Azure. First up, are you using Azure Monitor in production applications? Are you using the Azure Cloud? Yes. I mean, it'd be kind of strange if you're here not using the Azure Cloud, actually. I wonder what this cloud thing is. This is going to be my first session ever about clouds. I'm going to choose this one. No, I don't think so. I'm sure we have lots of experienced Azure users in the house and cloud people, right? I'm like you, right? I've been a cloud nerd since the very beginning. I was the first to have the title of Microsoft MVP for Azure in the Nordics, and I have been an MVP since. So that means that I have 14 consecutive MVP titles. I'm also what Microsoft call a regional director, which is kind of funky. Doesn't mean much. It means that I hang out with Microsoft, but I'm not employed by Microsoft. I don't have a region, and I also don't direct anything. But it's a title, extra bonus title that I have for fun. Global Azure will be featured as part of my demos. And for those of you who are community people, the new dates for Global Azure are actually not even on our website yet. But we are in the process of updating the website. And we're going to run another event in April for Global Azure, where it's going to be my job to try to get as many sponsors as I can, so that we can hand out sponsorships globally to the communities that partake in Global Azure. I also have a podcast that where I interview people for 20 minutes about one thing. So your commitment to an episode is 20 minutes, which is kind of useful because that's about the attention span of a podcast listener. Tomorrow in this room and on this stage, I will be back with another topic. I'm going to talk about the things that are difficult, apparently, in terms of architecting for Azure. So it's a bit of a ambitious title, but it's gonna be fun. All right, so far so good. Everyone with me? All right, let's go. Three things to talk about. First one is monitoring in the rear view. In the beginning of Azure, when it was called Windows, there were some tools that you could have and use for diagnosing and monitoring your application, right? You used perfmon and those kinds of things, and there was event tracing for Windows and some old things, right? This was long ago. You couldn't really do much diagnostics for real. I mean, you use your old external tools, right? But Microsoft has always done a lot of tracing and monitoring of your services. Way back when, old portal, they already did that, if for no other reason but to keep track of the costs, right? And so that they can send you a nice bill of your consumption. But also, the diagnosis of how is the service going, is it responsive or not? How many use this portal? Yeah? There are some people in the room where they're, I was one of them, so pardon the joke, but yes, your age is showing. So back then, you could only manage one service at a time. There were no templated deployments or anything like that. That came later with the introduction of the current portal, let's say, right? When was the current portal introduced? Anyone remember? It's less. It's 14 and 15, in fact. I was in the room when they were previewing this. Actually, this screenshot still says preview on it. It's kind of cute. So it's an old screenshot. But yes, this is now 10 years ago. The portal became generally available. And with that came, as we all know, the management endpoint, right? That you use to communicate with your resources and configure them and deploy them and set them up and so on. No matter what tooling we are using, the command line, the SDKs, the Azure portal, it doesn't matter. They all speak to this endpoint, right? There is only one endpoint with which you talk to configure anything in Azure, right? So that was also came with the new portal and the new setup. The previous setup, let's go back to that slide, that was the Azure service model. And then came the Azure resource model, right? ARM that we're using still. So that was the big difference there. Do you remember when Application Insights was introduced? Anyone? Take a guess. Same time? It was roughly the same time. It was generally available in 2016. And what's interesting about that is, for some of you who know this, it didn't use log analytics. Log analytics came later. How much later? And can anyone call out the logo? No one? Huh? No, let's see. Log Analytics was introduced as the Azure Data Explorer, ADX, and then later it was renamed to Log Analytics. But the code name was Custo. That was the original code name for this thing. And Application Insights was not using it initially. Application Insights started using it later. You were given options, and now it's like default Application Insights use Log Analytics, right? But this was announced as ADX at Ignite in 2018, and Log Analytics then was originally part of OMS. What? And then something next happens, the Azure Monitor. Do you recall this one then? When did it happen? When was Azure Monitor announced? The conference was Ignite. The year was... I'll show you. It was the unified platform that was announced at Ignite. It included the first versions of Azure Resource Health and Azure Advisor, and those things that we use, of course, today. In that conversation, they were talking about having this as a single pane of glass, and I was one of the MVPs. There were many MVPs, so I'm not at all special in that sense. But us MVPs, we were talking to Microsoft about this. And it's like, okay, how does this work? And do we have any like, what's your expectation for monitoring? I would say, right? They would have this discussion with us, and we said, listen, we want a dashboard thing. We want a single pane of glass where we can see the application health with all the resources and stuff. So Microsoft has been building this on this story for many years. And Log Analytics, this is one of the slides that Microsoft used back then, or I adapted it a little bit. So all your signals coming in, right? Everything that your application telemetry, your resource telemetry, and all the things that are inbound, come in as both metrics and logs, right? Into log analytics, and then or into Azure Monitor rather, but it's log analytics, this thing here. And then they use this picture to try to describe that. And basically, I thought of this as remote perfmon, basically, right? Where you send your metrics into another system externally to your application. So you're no longer remoting onto the machine and checking perfmon, which was the thing we did before. But now this is like remote perfmon. And then you can see that both log analytics and application insights came in under the Azure Monitor umbrella around this time. So Azure Monitor has been around for quite a while. And this is just for completeness and for nerdy historical reasons. But it's a lot of text, so I'm not going to quiz you on it later. But in the years in between, Microsoft has done a lot with log analytics and Azure monitoring, workspace-based things there, KQL, query language, snapshot debugger, blah, blah, blah. Some of these things are clearly competition plays, like when they're fixing up, with VMs and SAP and various things, queries you can cross query across and snapshot debug, a lot of things. The last one is kind of important. I think that you all know the Azure Monitor Agent, the AMA. That was the one that replaced the MMA, the Microsoft Monitoring Agent, and the Log Analytics Agent, right? But nowadays, we only use this new agent, unified, same for everything, the Azure Monitor Agent, right? A few more things in the rear view before we dive into the service groups and then the health models. Management groups, they are significant to the story, so I brought them up here as well. When was management groups introduced? Huh? 19, he says. It's actually earlier. It's 17 and generally available in 18. And from May of last year, it is default. You can no longer not have a management group above your subscription. You can have just one management group, the tenant root group, if you so like. But most of us use this concept of landing zones and things, right? And have a little tree of management group nodes and so forth. But this is now the default only way to do it. What happened there, as you probably recall, was that creating subscriptions became very easy. Before this time, I would have enterprise customers that had like 1 or 2 subscriptions, like thousands of resources in these subscriptions. But that's not at all how we do things today. It's changed a lot. So Microsoft shifted the focus. They kind of zoomed out one step, right? But before, the resource group was the application, basically. But now it's not at all like that. Now it's a subscription scope for your landing zones, right? You might have multiple for one application. That's pretty normal, right? And this happened when Microsoft made it so that subscription is sort of the scope, the box that we think about when we set up access control, when we do billing internally in the company, and so on and so forth, right? It's now on the subscription scope. And one more thing for completeness as well, as this is also part of the story, tags that you can put on subscription, that you can put on your resource groups and resources and so forth. When was tags introduced? Well, you're thinking hard. All right, I'm going to tell you. TechEd in Barcelona in 2014 and generally available in 2015. So tags are 10 years old. Back then, you could have maximum, 15 tags? Now it's 50, right? But tags is also part of this story, so I wanted to pull that up as well. Now, with all of these very smart things that the Azure platform can do, all the tagging and all the subscriptions and management groups and all the Azure monitors and all the things, what is it that is missing from this picture? What is it that Azure can't do? Azure does not actually know what your application really is. There's no mechanism. Yeah, sure, there's the application diagrams and things you can do. But seriously, to Azure, your resources are resources. They lack context. They don't know what your application is. And that's the thing that is changing. Okay? With service groups. That was public preview at Build this spring. And I've known this for a long time, and I've been anxious to get my hands on it. And I was actually giving a presentation at Techorama in Belgium the week after Build. And I was like, yes, finally I can talk publicly about this. The issue was that I actually didn't have access to it yet. So I was just showing pictures. This is what it's going to look like. Yes. Oh, my God. But now I actually do have access to it, except it's preview, so it doesn't always work as it should. But we'll get to that. So the thing is, with these new service groups, if we go back to these things, make the slide, this is a Microsoft slide, so I'm simplifying. All these things that we have from governance, from Azure governance, like the basic fundamental base plane of Azure, right? All these things that we can do with our applications, all of these things completely, like, they now change absolutely nothing at all, right? You're getting a new tool. Everything that you knew is the same. All of that stuff with the, scope, subscription scope, resource group scope, resource, and the RBAC model, and the policies, and the everything is exactly the same. Service groups is a separate new thing that they're putting in there. If you're asking me, I think that they are implementing this API with some highly available, globally scalable Cosmos databases, I think, because this is a graph we're going to see. But I don't know that. I just think that if I were Microsoft, I would do it that way. So you have all of these different things, many different things, right, that you can use theoretically to identify what your application is. Oh, we tag with an application name. So all the things that are tagged with the application name are part of the application. Sure. But again, that doesn't really mean anything to Azure. We use the same location maybe, or we have them in one subscription, and everything in that subscription is part of the application. Sure, again, Azure doesn't really care, right? But there are many strategies that we use to try to figure out what the application is. And then if we want to make some sort of a downstream experience of this, let's say we want to build some dashboards and things, then we have to do it ourselves, right? We can do a Power BI report and let you filter on tags, and the things that show up on the report are the same application, that sort of thing. I'm sure many of you, have you done this? Yeah, I'm very sure that you're doing this because that's exactly the tools we have had to do it, right? But a little hands-on, we have to fix some things ourselves. Still going to have to fix things ourselves in the future, but it's different now. Because if you have that, all that we know, what we now add is this. So there is a root there. There's a root thing, which is the same as your this is a Microsoft slide as well, that I copied from their deck. But you can now describe your organization like a tree with like department this, team that, service so-and-so, and describe these things and map out your entire landscape of everything you have. And then you can associate your resources with these service groups. So that means that you will now, for the first time, persist into Azure information that tells Azure what your application is, and also how your application things relate to one another. If this database goes down, that affects this API, and this API is now also in trouble. By the way, this API is used by this application website, and that is also now affected. So you can get graphs that show, and that's the health models we're going to talk about later. So it's a little preview of where we're going with this. Because now you have told Azure these resources there, that database and this storage account and whatnot, that is my application, right? And that's new and kind of cool. For a governance nerd like myself, it's very cool. So you can spec out your entire organization. I will show a demo very quickly, so I'm going to skip past this. This is another Microsoft slide, by the way. You can technically, theoretically, it's still preview, but you should be able to just say, hey, that resource group is my app, or everything in this subscription is my app. Make that part of my service group. And if I put new resources in there, they will be discovered as you put new things in there as well. And then I see this as sort of an aggregator, right? So you can then say, and again, it's preview, so I can't show any such thing, but let's say that you have a department with many teams, and many teams have many services, and then you have like dozens or tens or even hundreds of them. Get me a summary of the whole department, right? This is just a reference point. This is just describing what these things are. And again, it comes from Azure Governance, so it's part of the base plate of Azure. So the first demo, I'm going to show, among other things, that it does not go to 11. It only goes to 10. For those of you, there's some who catch that reference. Resource groups, service groups do not go to 11. They only go to 10. Let me make that larger for you, right? A little larger. That's OK, right? That's just me being nerdy. Lining up some service groups in as infrastructure as code, but that's just Magnus is a geek. It's official. What I do here is this. I set every service group has a parent. If no other parent, then it's the root of the tenant, the root service group, and so you get this hierarchy that I showed you on the slide. You can set the service group ID and the display name and the description. And then you can use this handy little PowerShell commandlet to do it, except you can't. Again, Magnus is a geek, so he has Magnus. I'm not supposed to talk about myself in the third person. I'm sorry about that. Let me see the screen there. Let me get out of this large screen thing. So there. I actually had to implement a little bit on the REST API. So presently, it's mostly REST API. And let's see, we have here add service group members. I want to have the one I did for add service group. Yes, new service group. So I implemented the REST API there with a put command. What I want to show you, why I'm showing you this, and what I want to show you here are a couple of things. One is that there is no scope. There's no like management group scope, subscription scope, anything like that. This is on its own. It's outside of the regular tree that you know, right? And so you just say providers, Microsoft management, service groups, and then the name of the thing. And also what you can see down here is that I do a wait operation thing there when I invoke it. And the reason is that every put, delete, and post, all the ones that make updates and changes, they are asynchronous. So you have to do it first. I'm sure there's going to be a nice, library from Microsoft to either CLI or PowerShell in the future. But for now, you can use the REST API. And there is a portal experience as well that I'm going to show you. But let's go back to the demo. I'm going to show you the portal experience, but here also is the thing that I want to execute later, and hopefully it'll work, but the thing is that it probably won't. I copied the output here that says, when I try to create something 11 levels deep, it fails. So it doesn't go to 11. But let's go to the Azure portal and take a look at this, what the portal experience is like. Let's get the portal. So this is just the browser in full screen mode. In the Azure portal, you can go to Resource Manager, and in Resource Manager, you can find service groups, right? And here are the service groups that I had in my that I deployed, right? This is just demo stuff. Shall I make it larger? It becomes a little weird when you make it large like that, but for demo purposes, it's better because you can see it. So here's my levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10. And when I try to deploy 11, it fails, right? Also, here are some demos that I have deployed. Now Global Azure, the community event is coming back because the resources for Global Azure website and so on, they run on my Azure benefits that I get from Microsoft. So I'm running community stuff on my own subscription there. So I'm going to use those as part of the demo. Makes sense, right? So here is a group. We're going to come back to this group later. But effectively, what I wanted to show you here, you could have stuff like the food department with team 1, 2, 3. No, the bar department, then the food department, team A, first service, second service, third service, and so on. So you can just, whatever your landscape looks like, just map that out, right? And on the access side of things for these, you can set access to them as well. Service groups. You need to pick a service group. Let's say you have some people that work on the food department. If you pick that one, you can set access to that and say, well, you can be a service group reader, or there's an administrator. I can't remember right now what's the difference between the administrator and the contributor, but the contributor can make changes to it. And so you can have that and say that maybe you want the whole company to see to be able to read the whole tree, or maybe you don't. But you can have people be responsible for making changes under a certain department and not being able to make changes on the other people's services. That sort of thing. Okay? Cool. That was the first demo. Oh, yeah, sorry. I was going to see if we can run the thing that says that it goes to 11. Let's try, right? So if I execute that thing, it should fail. The question is what failure message I will get. I think I'm going to get internal server error. It's going to take a little while. But I did get the nice message that said you can't nest 11 levels deep before. So this is preview, and I'm getting some strange messages at times. Let's see, come on. This is very slow now, but if it doesn't work, then it's fine. But again, I did screenshots of all my demos, so I'd like to see you return now. Yes, there we go. Internal server error, right? So I told you. It's not giving me the correct error right now. And this is also cool. It's a zero GUID. So preview, but the real error message, I managed at least to record it here where it says, this operation is not allowed as this will cause the hierarchy to cross the maximum depth allowed when group of type service group and name 11 is made the child of 10. So, yeah. All right. So let's see. I have some slides. I'm going to click past the slides because now I've showed you the demo, and here are my backup slides. I didn't show you the members, how to make a thing a member of the service group. I'll do that in my next demo. But effectively, what it turns into is that you can list the resources in your service group, right? I'm going to show you that later as well. So let's skip over this because I have the backups slides, and you can add members and so on. Okay, cool. Let's skip that. You get the picture, right? You're smart people. Service groups in comparison to other things. Management group, subscription, resource group. This is the things you knew, the things you know, the things you have been using. This is not a deployment scope. It has nothing to do with deployments. Deployments happen in the subscription, in a resource group, and so on, right? And that's where that is taking place. Policy and RBAC inheritance. No, it has nothing to do with access control into your resources and stuff. It's none of that. I should make that slide. Well, if you take a picture, then you can probably see anyway, but I do the cover up thing so I can keep focus. This is supposed to be low privilege access. It doesn't give you access to the resources, but it gives you access to sort of the information about the application, to the aggregation, right? But if you want to run something later that uses that, you still need to give the managed identity access. I'm going to show you that later, so let's keep it for then. Can you do nesting? Yes, you can put management groups in management groups, right? How many levels deep does management groups go? Who knows this? 6, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's 6. All right, because you sounded so confident, I was like, oh, I think it's 6. But yeah, so but it's 10 for the service groups, right? But the other things, you can't put a subscription in a subscription, you can't put a resource group in a resource group, right? So there's differences there. And again, with the flexible membership, I'm not showing that at all today, and I would say, like if you have a service group based on a resource group or based on a subscription, and you put a new resource in there, it's going to show up in your service group. That's both good and bad, in my opinion. I would, though it's more complicated, I would prefer to be explicit about the services that are part of my service group, because then I know if they are really supposed to be there or not, right? I'll show you that you can query this later as well. But essentially then, now you have service groups, okay? Base plate of Azure governance contains service groups. Brilliant. What can we do with this? Well, how about health modeling on top of that? So service groups come from the core governance Azure team. Now, a completely different team, Azure Monitor, can bank on the fact that service groups exist, and they can build an experience based on that information. So this is the part where the wrap broke down for me, because seriously, I have been messing around with this a lot. I was so happy that it worked just before my talk, so I took screenshots. And then let's see if I can show you some stuff now. and we'll see. If it doesn't work, I do have the backups on it anyway. So let's go to the other demo. Actually, go to the top of the other demo. So what I do is I create my service group that I called Global Azure Demo 3. I create that service group, and then I have some resources here. The fully qualified resource name, subscription / resource group / provider / the resource name, right? So I'm not doing the discovery bit, but I'm adding explicitly specific resources. These are some of the real resources used for Global Azure. So these are community website resources. Okay? And then I add those as members. And I showed you very quickly before the screenshot of what that looks like. Let me see if I can show you that in the portal, what it looks like there. So in the service group, and it was actually demo 3 was the one that worked. But there were many other numbers before I came to this point. If I click on this thing, you'll see that it has 8 members. And if I click on that, I can then see those members, right? So this is just me grouping a couple of function apps and storage accounts and stuff, static websites, into a little group that says, this is my application, right? There are actually a few more resources, but I wanted to keep it simple for you. So I'm just, let's do the simple demo today, right? And so I add the service group members. I have now defined and persisted in Azure what is my application. Things I can do now is I can query that on the resource graph. So if I execute that, it should come back and say, these resources, these 8 resources that you saw on the Azure portal, they are indeed part of your service group. And that opens up some very interesting things for me. Show me a list in this subscription of all the resources that are not part of a service group. Wait a minute. I can do stuff with this, right? So that's why I said I'd rather be explicit about and use infrastructure as code to deploy my template bicep, whatever, right, or Terraform or something, and then be equally explicit about the service group membership and say, I intend that that storage account is indeed part of application foo, right? Because then it's very clear that everything that is not part of a service group might be waste. Woohoo! My OCD is making backflips right now. So I think this is really cool that you can do that, and I can see how this will be very handy for us going forward, right? You agree with this? I think I'm seeing a lot of nods. There's like, yeah, there are some governance people in the house. We're battling this all the time, right? So then I create myself a health model. Now I can do that using the Azure portal. You can go home and do it using the Azure. I don't know if that public preview is available to everyone. I think that the service group one is now available to everyone. You can go and use it straight away, but I'm not sure about health models. There might be a sign up for that. Still, I can't remember. But I'm doing it using a bicep template because reasons. And so I'm doing that deployment. I'm creating a resource group for it, and then I'm doing the deployment. And I want to show you a little bit of what is in the template. I'll make it larger. There we go. So in the health, you create a Microsoft Cloud health models thing. You create that. And I'm using a system-assigned managed identity in this example. You can use a user-assigned managed identity as well. And so here's the managed identity. And then I have the discovery rules. So this is for the discovery, right? If you want to say that if I put a new resource in that resource group, it's going to be part of the service group as well, that sort of thing. But you can deploy and configure that, and I'm not doing much of that right now. Then you specify, I'm going to show you the design view of this, because there is a whole design world that you can move your things around and draw lines between them. And then there's also this that I want to show. It's signal definition. So you can say what's the threshold of a resource being, if it's in a green state, everything is happy. What's in this case, the CPU percentage that's going to put it in a degraded state? And what's the CPU level that's going to put it in an unhealthy state? So you can define these signals to your liking, specifically how it's supposed to be for your resources, right? When am I in trouble? It goes over a certain threshold, right? With CPU or something else, any kind of signal that you like. Cool. So let's see. So after I have deployed my health model, and I will show you in the portal, just one more thing that I want to bring up before I do, is that you also need to give access to the managed identity that runs your health model. First of all, it needs to have access to read the service group that it's based on. And oh, by the way, I didn't call it out, but let's do that as well. you give your health model a name, and then you point to a specific service group. So that's where the health model is taking advantage of the fact that my application is described in a service group, right? So I forgot to say that, but here we are. And so you give access for it to read that service group. That's kind of obvious. And you also, in this case, I gave access to read the resources in my subscription. But you need to give your health model managed identity access to read the telemetry of the resources that you wanted to model the health for. Okay, makes sense, right? So let's see. Yeah, that's it, actually. So that's how you deploy the thing. And when you do, you get this. Let's see if I have the... let's go in through the entrance to health models. Health models preview. You can list all your health models, and you can then click on your health model, demo 3. And there are some things here in your health model. First of all, how does the health model do discovery? Well, it's using the system-assigned managed identity, and it's discovered 8 resources. The health model can see these resources. Then there is a designer, which, oh, it's very small on this screen, of course, now. There we go. Here's my health model. So it's storage accounts here at the bottom, and they relate to their function apps. And the function apps, they relate to the static web apps. And then they are all rooted in my health model node. So you design this thing. You can lay it out any way you like. You can totally export this and persist the layout as well as infrastructure as code. So you can keep all that. This is an Azure resource. I mean, unlike the service group, which is kind of next to everything, it's a new concept. A health model is an Azure resource, which is deployed into a resource group and so on. It's the same as you always have known. And then you can then graph this thing. Let's see if we're lucky. Yes, it's still red. When you want to do a demo, you want something to fail so you can show a failure. Normally, I would be very annoyed by this, but now I'm happy that I can actually show something that is broken. So that kind of makes sense for us in the health model department here. Oh, let's click. It's difficult to click. I'm going to do it this way. So here we go. Look at this. There's some crap going on here, right? So this thing has a problem. It's gone above its threshold for healthy state, which means that this is affected, which means that that is affected, right? So you can get this model of your health of the application, and this will help you investigating what the problem is. So I'm happy that it's broken, because this thing is fine. This is green, lovely, right? That's bad. So yeah, yoo-hoo, my demo worked. I'm really pumped about that because it wasn't always the case. Okay, then. So as you can see, there's something wrong here. And if I do click on that, you can see, you can start digging into that. I don't know what's going to happen here. Let's see. There are some signals that are firing and telling me that this is unhealthy. And it's the availability, apparently, that says that it's unhealthy. I don't know what's wrong with this, if something bad is happening or not. But again, you can tune these levels for something that makes sense for your application. This is pretty cool, in my opinion, because I mean, there have been other ways of doing similar things before. But this now being a standard, a new standard, hopefully then soon generally available, means that you can just say, that app, make me a model. And it seems to me quite convenient and fast and smart, right? And you can imagine, I know that they're talking to many teams about also them, other Microsoft service teams taking advantage of service models as well. For example, FinOps, right? Give me the FinOps summary of this whole department of many apps and kind of that sort of thing, right? Just give me the skinny of this based on a FinOps investigation or something like that. I like this. All right, so is that demo done? Yes, it is. That is what I wanted to show you in this demo. Brilliant. Hopping back to then, now you have service groups, and then you create health models on top of that. And as you all know, every presentation these days have to talk about AI. So I am also going to talk a little bit about AI. Oh, actually, I have to jump past a lot of my demo backup slides. Bear with me. This is the portal experience of creating a health model. Moving along. There's the screenshots of what you just saw live, but I was so happy that I took a screenshot before, just in case. And there are a couple of more things that, investigation-wise, that I also, by the way, I have time to spare, so I'm going to show you that as well. I did show you a little bit already, but here is, let's say that you have the application, and you suddenly get a notification, or you notice that, oh my God, there's something wrong. There seems to be something wrong here, so I'm going to view that timeline. Oh my God, something has broken over there. Clicking on that, it zooms in on the timeline. Seems like the cluster has an issue. You go to the cluster and you see, no, it's actually not. It's degraded, but it's not that bad. Okay, then what could be the problem? So instead, you click on this thing, and you see that, oh, there's some log analytics query that's showing that something is unhealthy. So you can see how you can like walk around through this and see and figure out which lamp is blinking on this single pane of glass that we were talking about, which is giving me the information that something is unhealthy and might need investigation, right? Now we're back to where I wanted to be, past my backup slides. And we have to talk about AI, right? Because it's mandatory, apparently. So let's talk about AI and make Microsoft happy. Of course, Azure Monitor is also doing AI-based investigations on top of the health models, right? And this is actually a place where I think AI can really shine, because they have every knowledge of every resource that has ever been wrong in a bad state in all of Azure for every customer. Based on that knowledge, they can probably draw some really cool conclusions about the state of your application when it's unhealthy. So I think that's a good place for AI to assist. And it's a public preview, but even I can't access this right now, so they must have switched off that light. So in this case, I'm happy that I do have the backup slides, because I can't even show you this. Fine. You get an email saying, uh-oh, there's something wrong, critical alert, blah, blah, blah. All right, so click on that thing and see the details, and then you get to the portal. And then up here, they have investigate preview, but if I go to the portal now, I can't see that. So they've turned it off for now. But I've seen the real demos of it. I have had this demo to me, and I've seen it at build. So I know it's something they are working on. But when you do click on it, you get this experience where there is an issue created for the alerts, and you can start looking into, well, see the cause. What are my next steps? What should I be looking at? All these things are related alerts, possibly, because they're in the same app, and they are also firing and giving alerts. And so those may be related to things. And you can get a description by the AI there. What has happened? Possible explanation. What am I going to do next? That's generated by the AI to help you investigate your issue and suggest solutions for you. So that's their thinking, that this is going to be sort of your helper to do investigation on failures. And then this issue is another resource which you can then set to, in progress, new, mitigated, resolved, so you can process it, and I'm sure also then log the thing in your ticketing system and whatever is needed to be done, right? So that's the thinking about using AI on top of this experience. But again, what we are doing now is that we are telling Azure exactly what is my application. And if Azure knows what many thousands of applications are, it can start drawing conclusions based on that base of knowledge, right? To help you out when you have issues with your application. So yeah, this has gone really fast and really well because we're towards the end now of this session. You can go, service groups documentation is public. You can browse to it and read it. There's not a lot of information there, but there are a couple of pages for service groups. And also that is the observability blog, where you can then read the announcement of health models and see how you can maybe get into trying those out for yourself. So before I do the final summary, I'd like to ask if you have any questions on this. Yes. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that. Thank you for the question. You were asked, if I heard you correct, you're asking if a resource can be part of more than one service group. Correct, it can. So it can, one resource can be part of many different contexts and many different service groups. Yes. Plus that aggregation also pretty cool, like if you have a department, right? And it's like 25 applications in the same department, then clicking on the department node should give you all the resources in all of the apps and all of the thing, right? But yes, it can be part of multiple service groups. So it's up to you. Good question. And yes?
Yeah, I was wondering, for example, will be integrated with Defender right now, because it looks like if it can cut off some false positives that comes from Microsoft Defender or something like that. Because, for example, some resources are accessed from other resources, and Defender recognizes it as some malicious access. So maybe it will be integrated
with Defender. Yeah, I'm very sure that Defender will be part of this scope as well, but I haven't seen any of it yet. So he's asking about getting false positives and signals from Defender and how that can be sort of integrated here. I'm not sure actually. So this is not something that they have disclosed information about. So based on the information that I do have, yes, highly likely that there's going to be something there, but I can't show anything today. Yeah, it's probably something that I would do that if I were Microsoft. I would involve Defender in this. Defender is everywhere. All right. Other questions? There were some more hands. Yes. Higher. Yes. So you can configure that. There's going to be more configuration options as we progress this. But in this first iteration, this first basic scenario that I showed you, a little graph of my health model, then yes, it is actually the case that if a lower down resource is yellow or red, then the things above also become yellow or red. And you can set tolerances on this stuff, but it's still in preview. They have a feature timeline of adding much more to this. So you can define the kind of relationship that they have and what it affects and so on. Yes, correct. Good question as well. Any more questions? Yes.
But it seems like it's better to use this than tags for FinOps because you can see everything.
Yeah. So the observation is that this looks like it's going to be very useful for FinOps to get like a whole department or something and get the scale of things together. And again, going back to, so it's a great observation, and I agree. Going back to what I said before, I see service groups as sort of a viewpoint, right? It's a listing of your things, but it gives Azure context for the first time. It truly knows what is supposed to be in your application, right? And then what's supposed to be in your team, and then what's supposed to be in your department. And you can see how that is very, very handy for FinOps, right? I'm really excited to see what the FinOps side of the Microsoft house will add to this context, right? I don't know yet because I haven't seen anything or they have not presented anything yet, so it's unknown at this time. But it's going to be interesting. Yes.
At the end, it should be the same principle, right? Now we start with the house models.
Yeah.
We could see cost analysis.
Cost analysis, exactly. It should be agreed. So yes, Defender. Yeah, exactly. So the observation, you guys are now like your brains are now spinning here, going like, wow. If I have service groups, what about FinOps? What about Defender? Wow, there's so many things you can do. Yes, exactly that. So the way it has been described to me is that the service groups is now the fundamental from Azure Core Governance, the fundamental anointed way to describe the application. This is so everyone else can then bank on it, right? And build their experiences based on it. Like you saw when I created a health model, I say, give me a health model based on that service group. And you can do that for FinOps, for anything, right? Policies, yes, for all the things, exactly. So I think it's super duper cool. All right, we're coming near to any last question, any thought? Anyone want to share an impression? No? Anyone want to do a limerick? No? All right, cool. Then we're at the end. And then I will summarize to say that first we tell Azure what is the application specifically based on creating service groups and listing our resources as members of the service group. You can have dynamic discovery. You can have explicit setups for it, depending on your flavor. Then you create health models to collect the right information at the right time. So it's a viewpoint of sorts, right? And then finally, of course, we have to say AI. So I officially said AI in my presentation, so yay. The AI, I think, actually does have a really, really strong case here to help us out understanding the health of our resources. All right, so that's it for me. I really want to thank you for being here today, listening to this talk. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And, I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you for being here.